using your body as an instrument of communication is one of the most probably gratifying and also challenging things you can do. So I encourage you to try it. Use your body as a mode of communicating and see what that's like. Hi, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast, where we interview cutting-edge creative artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators who are changing the world. We also bring you tips and techniques that you can implement. This episode is brought to you by my favorite productivity hack, the Brain FM app, this podcast's hosts, Podbean, as well as my book, Speak From Within. Hey there, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trakhtenberg. I'm trying something new. I'm streaming this on Twitch at the same time as I am coming to you on the show. As you know, one of the things that I decided to do as part of doing this podcast, the Creative Solutions Podcast, where I interview creative peak performers and how they're using the arts to innovate, I am talking about shows that I've seen. For example, last night I saw Message in a Bottle at New York City Center, and I'm talking about how those shows are being used by people, how the process of creativity, the process of putting something on together actually aligns perfectly with the way things are done in entrepreneurship, in business, in just about any endeavor. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Whenever I see a show, I'm going to deconstruct an aspect of it and talk about this and see what exactly is happening when a team works together to put on something like a show. Now, you could call that a project of some sort. You could be a symphony orchestra. You could be a team that's a design team or an architectural team or a team of lawyers or a team of doctors or whatever it is. If you're working as a team, there are roles that you need to play, and everybody has some specialization, but also there are times when you have to work as a team to buoy up the other people and also to help them when they fall down and to celebrate them when they do something amazing. And this brings me to the show I saw last night, Message in a Bottle at New York City Center. Now, what's interesting about this show is you think to yourself, oh, it's another jukebox musical where the people are going to be singing the songs of some famous artist. And there's a story that's sort of woven around the songs to make it happen. Well, that part is true. There was a story woven around the songs of Sting, and so the music and lyrics of the pieces was Sting, but also the performance of it for the most part was Sting. And that's something we're not really thinking about, right? In these kinds of jukebox musicals, we're not thinking, oh, it's going to be somebody else who sings all this stuff. For this show, yes, there is somebody else singing a few of the songs, but mostly it's Sting's recorded versions, or he re-recorded the versions of the songs, sometimes a little more quietly, sometimes a little slower, in order to fulfill the design of the show. And the design of the show is a family who starts out living, and if you see the playbill, you will see what this is all written up. Sort of a synopsis is given to you because it's not, there are no spoken words. There are no words spoken in this show, which I just thought was amazing, which my husband, who likes theater fine, but isn't wowed by it, said, wow. He said he can't remember having such an incredible time in a musical theater type of performance in years and years. And so there are no spoken words. So everything is brought to you through movement and the music and lyrics of Sting. And wow. Okay. So it was directed and it was choreographed by Kate Prince. And wow, did Kate Prince do an incredible job bringing across this family and their struggles as they start life in a sort of idyllic kind of existence and then move through really, really awful, turbulent times and what happens to all of them as they go through all of this. Really powerful, powerful story. I really loved it. Okay, so let's talk about teamwork. One of the things that you watch is you're watching these incredible dancers. They are working together in the choreography is so tight, and they didn't have that long to put this together, right? And it's also, just so you know, it closes this weekend. So if you listen to the episode today and you're in New York City, or you're going to be in New York City this weekend, go, run, do not walk, and get tickets to the show. But one of the things that flowed so beautifully was the teamwork. They would work together. There were a lot of lifts, a lot of motion, a lot of things happening in concert, in perfect unison, if you will. And the dancing was a combination of hip hop and jazz and ballet and classical and modern, and wow. And again, everything flowed one into the other. So you would watch somebody do some very amazing hip hop moves, and all of a sudden the ballet dancers would come in and they would do some sort of ballet that flowed beautifully into and out of what the hip hop dancing was. It was mind boggling. But they also worked as a team to tell the story, and no movement was wasted. Everybody was focused on telling the story they had to tell and was incredible at it. And one of the things that I really loved watching was that they were genuinely happy for one another when they soloed, right? It was kind of like a challenge and tap. You would see each dancer come up and do some incredible feat as a soloist for just a little bit and highlight that facet, and then they would move away and somebody else would come in, and it was wow. So yeah, that was amazing. And there were 5 sort of principal dancers who were the family, 3 children and a mother and a father, and the daughter of the 3 children was one of the lead dancers, I believe. And I should have checked this before I started recording this episode, but I believe if I looked at her bio, I'd be like, oh yeah, Natalie is her name. She, I believe, was one of the principal dancers in David Byrne's American Utopia that we saw a couple of years ago, and it was also incredible. So yeah, and she's an amazing dancer and very Miche Petronelli and she remind me a lot of one another as dancers, very passionate. The story is told not just through her movements, but on her face and the energy she brings to every single thing that she does on stage. It was wow. But then again, everybody was great. You can find out the list of the dancers on the website, and I'll put the New York City Center website in the show notes so that you can see that. But it was amazing in part because you could see that they were the quote kids. I mean, these are all adults, but the quote children you could tell that they were children. You could tell that they cared for one another like children would do in those kinds of situations, and that the family unit was a family unit, and it was beautiful. So that part of it was also amazing. And everybody, of course, was in unbelievable shape. They're so dedicated to what they do, and they're doing it every night. And of course, they're dancers in New York. So of course, they're, I'm sure, studying all the time still. Just incredible. The choreography itself told the story brilliantly. Kate Price deserves all the credit in the Kate Price Kate Price singer, not Kate Prince, who is director and choreographer. But the choreography was really, I mean, it's very hard for me to describe how moving, how profound and poignant the choreography was. And there were times when she had to present to us tough things like gang rape, like somebody being forced into a life of not just prostitution, but being used that way. And it was incredibly powerful, incredibly moving, and enraging, of course. But the way the choreography went, the way the dancers showed us what happened was incredible. And they give a little warning in the program and also before you walk in that there are going to be scenes of a sexual nature. And when I was watching it, I was like, to me, they are scenes of a power struggle nature, a power over nature. I don't think of rape as a sexual act. I think of it as an act of imprisonment and an act of power over that happens to have sort of sex as a component, but that's not what, to me, rape is. And as someone who used to do rape crisis counseling, as always, if you have experienced that, I will put a phone number for the National Rape Crisis Hotline in the show notes as well. But I will always say that if you are here, if you survived you did the right thing, whatever it is you did. I always have to say that because that is so important. Women, mostly it's women who are raped, sometimes feel guilty that they didn't do enough or could have done more to stop what happened, to stop the man. Generally, the men are the ones who rape, from doing it. And no, no. What you did to survive is what you did to survive, and that is something to be incredibly proud of yourself for. So, all right, I will move on. So the choreography was profound and incredible. Oh, and I'm going to read something to you at the very end of this that is about this notion of violence, especially violence that men commit against women. That's a meme going around, and my version of it, because I think it's important to bring that up and talk about it. But let's move on to my deconstruction of Message in a Bottle. The blend of all the different styles of dance worked beautifully. I was ridiculously happy that I was able to see it. Sting's music, you can't go wrong. There are certain songs that I was like, wow, how are they going to fit those in? Because it basically just flows from one song to the next. And they created a story based on that was just unbelievable. And again, it's profound, it's poignant, it's unbearable at times. But wow, was it something I was glad I saw. I basically started crying from the very beginning and wept throughout the entire show, in part because I loved Sting's music, but in part because the story itself is so moving. One of the things is, the live shows closing this weekend, and I don't know if they're planning on touring with it or if they're going to move it to Broadway. I have not seen anything in my research. I would love to see them take it to Broadway for an extended run, because it's just so incredible. But it was also, the guy sitting next to us at the show last night said that they did release great performances of it. So PBS should have it somewhere, because it was in London before it came here. And so you might be able to do that, to see it, regardless of whether or not it closes here. I highly recommend seeing it live. It was unbelievable. And by the way, I'm so grateful. This is a strange thing to be grateful for. The tickets were not that expensive, which is amazing. And I got us row CC, which is like third row, and which is, I think they call it the orchestra pit rows. That's where the orchestra would have been if they had an orchestra, but they didn't, because it was Sting's music sort of through speakers. I would love to offer a word of advice to anybody who's going to the theater. Don't wear a big hat and don't make your hair big if you can avoid it. I know that sounds horrible, but if you tease your hair up so that it's 6 inches above your head and then spray it with spray, the people behind you also paid for tickets, doggone it. And if you're wearing a tall hat, same thing. Come on, everybody's paying for an experience, and the experience should not be looking at the back of your head or looking at your hair or looking at a big old hat that you decided to wear that's 16 inches tall, which has happened to me. Luckily last night, the lady who sat in front of me had big hair. And weirdly, the woman who sat next to her apparently was an oversharer. This is what we understand. Because the woman, after Act 1, she got up and she's like, oh, this woman is TMI. She's just oversharing. And all I want to do is let the experience of the show kind of wash over me. And I said, well, are you enjoying it? She said, yeah, but I can't abide. And here's what was interesting. The woman was kind of an oversharer, got up and started chatting with everybody. And I'm normally a chatty Cathy, but the stuff she was saying was a little bit personal. So that was a little odd. And she kept offering people food in the middle of the show, like Pringles potato chips to the person, sitting in front of me and all this other stuff. And I'm like, lady, come on now. We're all trying to enjoy the show, but okay, to each their own. But what was interesting is the woman that was sitting directly in front of me didn't come back for second act. And I'm wondering if she found another seat because she couldn't handle this oversharing woman, or if she just decided to leave. But from a strictly selfish perspective, I have to say, wow, the view with there's no one sitting in front of you, when a lot of the dancing is breakdancing and hip hop, which meant that a lot of it was happening close to the stage floor, which meant that if there's somebody tall in front of you or somebody with big hair or a big hat in front of you, you were going to miss, because we were sitting pretty much center stage, and I wouldn't have seen it. So I got such a treat to see the second act with almost a full view. And again, as powerful as you think it could be, it was unbelievable. And what's interesting is the communication. I talk about this to shift gears just a little bit. I talk about this a lot, Dr. Albert Mehrabian's rules 73855, about how we take in communication, how we take in information. And the 73855 rule is 7% of how you take things in is the words that are said, 38% is the tone with which they are said, and 55% of what you take in is the body language of the person who's communicating with you. And so last night, with there being absolutely no words other than Sting's songs, we took everything in through Sting's songs, which are They Dance Alone is one of the songs in the show, Guecan Solo, and it is unfreaking believable to watch that song being danced to by master dancers. Wow. And again, weeping, but the movement of the bodies, that using your body as an instrument of communication is one of the most probably gratifying and also challenging things you can do. So I encourage you to try it. Use your body as a mode of communicating and see what that's like. Alrighty, moving on. I adored it. I would love to encourage you to see it, in part because you'll learn a lot about communication. You'll see an incredible story, and you will be absolutely wowed by the dancing. I am ridiculously happy that I got to see this show before it closed. And as always, I'm going through and I am figuring out all of the different places where this kind of thing can happen. When I see a show, you're going to get my interpretation of how collaboration, communication, innovation in telling stories, in working your own creativity, in living your life, in pushing your boundaries can happen through the arts. It's my favorite thing to talk about. It's my favorite thing to think about, and it's my favorite thing to do. So as much as possible, I would love it if you have questions or ideas, drop me a line and let me know what those are. And because this is so the arts and how they apply to the rest of our lives, I think they're intertwined inextricably. And I want us to think about the arts as much as possible and our own creativity and our own contribution to the art in the world as vital and critical to our very survival, because I think innovation comes from creativity, and creativity and innovation are going to be the thing that saves us all. Alrighty, so now I am going to read to you, and I'm going to see if I can. Glenn Guldry is the person who perhaps either wrote the meme or shared the meme, because the person is not. I think Glenn is probably a man. There is no credit to this, but the person I see that shared it was Glenn Guldry, or Guidry, Guidry. And it says, "Attention ladies," and this is going back to this whole notion of surviving physical attacks of some sort. And so here's what he wrote. "Attention ladies. 1. Make sure you fill up your gas tank before sunset. 2. Always keep an extra phone charger with you. 3. Park in well-lit areas. 4. Always look in your back seat. 5. After parking, don't just sit. Lock your door as soon as you get in and leave. 6. Do not park next to big vans. If you have to, enter your car from your passenger door. 7. If a man is sitting in the car next to your parked car, go back inside, have someone walk you out. 8. Always use the elevator, no stairways. 9. Heads up and phones down. Be aware." And I read this and I went, okay, why? Why is the communication to the women? Why are the warnings? Why are all the warnings to women? Why is there nothing that talks to the men? Think about it. All of this is talking about, hey, women, the presupposition here is that you're going to be attacked. So why are the presuppositions that some man is going to attack a woman, and so we have to warn women away? Why aren't we talking to men? Think about that. We're talking to women to warn them that, basically it's accepted that men are going to do this. And so you have to prepare yourself and you have to protect yourself. What about the other way around? What if we talk to the men? And so I came up with my own version. Attention men, if you see a woman parked in an unlit area, leave her alone. If you see a woman's unlocked car, walk around it and leave it alone. Do not hide in the back seat of a woman's car. If you're sitting in a parked car next to a woman's car and she shows up to get in her car, don't bother her. If you see a woman in an elevator when you get in, leave her alone. If you see a woman walking up or down a staircase, leave her be. In other words, attention men, don't attack women. Ta-da! What if we start having the conversation take place that way? What if instead of going, okay, ladies, we need to tell you how to protect yourselves, what if we switch the conversation and also say, attention, gentlemen, don't attack women. Let's make it an anathema. Let's make it something that is reviled to ever attack a woman. What if we did that? Something to think about, right? Okay, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trakhtenberg, reminding you that this is an episode that's brought to you by my favorite productivity app, creativity app, meditation app called Brain FM. And it's brought to you by my book, Speak From Within, which is all about how to communicate, inspire, engage, and motivate any audience. And this podcast hosts Podbean. Until next time, as always, I remind you to leave it better than you found it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the show if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trakhtenberg and is copyright 2024. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.